Absolutely. And I completely agree. And I want to kind of take us into a segment on The Daily Show where Jon Stewart was chronicling how Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has fearmongered about Iran getting a nuclear weapon for over a decade. And we'll show a clip of that here.
The medium enrichment and move on to the final stage.
Iran is months away from having a nuclear bomb, says Netanyahu, in 2012.
And so I just want to kind of talk to you guys, maybe an extension on the conversation that we were just having, or just kind of your thoughts about fear mongering, the way it's taking place, and kind of thinking through that here after this, looking at this segment.
Yeah, I kind of had two thoughts on this segment. One was it really brought me back to the Iraq War when so many folks from my generation were just glued to The Daily Show and Jon Stewart because it was one of the few places you could go that would actually kind of lampoon mainstream culture. Even though Comedy Central is a corporate channel and mainstream culture, like Jon Stewart was able to always walk this thin line of being a part of mainstream culture, but being able to mock it without being considered like some nuts radical. And I'm really happy to see him back on television. I know, like all of us, he's getting older and he has less time to do these things. But I thought he did a great job of explaining to audiences kind of the long history of how Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has consistently claimed Iran is just months, if not weeks, away from getting a nuclear bomb, dating back all the way to 2012. And again, Stewart does it with humor. It makes it more digestible. Audiences are more open to it, where, there are those of us who are writing about it on Substack and getting hate mail, but Jon Stewart gets laughs, and is able to spread the same message. And I say that with total, support for Jon Stewart and what he's doing. So in addition to the war aspect of it, I just think it's another example of how important it is for those folks who want to be truth tellers to examine different ways to get the truth out. It doesn't have to be Substack posts, doesn't have to be television broadcasts. It can be infographics, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of what I took from it. What do you think, Dickey?
Yeah, no, well, I want to give a shout out to your most recent Gaslight Gazette kind of op-ed that you published on your Substack, Nolan, because I think you did a really good job at talking about how the public opinion it shifts depending on the fear mongering that the media participates in. Like when this conflict is framed as we're stopping Iran's nuclear program, then support for it rises. But then when it's framed as a regime change war or effort, opposition grows, support decreases. So the mainstream media that's reporting Netanyahu's claims without that have been going on for decades, that without pushing back or thinking critically about that is it's just kind of it's not just a glitch. It's really part of this operating system of the establishment, the sort of neoconservative push to just have these perpetual wars and conflicts. And even it also in your and I really appreciated in your Substack the mentioning of how even outlets like NPR or CNN, which are kind of considered to be on the counterweight to Trumpism, they are just repeating claims without any analytical thought to what they're repeating. They're just taking it as fact that yes, Iran has weapons of mass destruction, even though there's so much evidence from our own intelligence and the International Agency on Atomic Energy that says to the contrary. So I think your quote of stenographers posing as journalists that critique really landed. And I think it's so important to point out. And I guess I was also curious how we could how do we distinguish between press that's being manipulated or press that's being complicit?
I guess, it's a good question. One of the things I always recommend, this doesn't really help in the immediate, but it helps in the long term. I've always paid attention to folks who go against the grain, not just because they go against the grain, right? If you just follow that, you can end up getting like a Alex Jones type figure. But folks who go against the grain and then are proven right consistently, whether it be a month later, a year later, decade later. And it's not only that they were right is what attracts me to those people. It's that they have courage and bravery to say what's right. They know it's right. They take the hits and later get proven right. Now, I'll be honest though, if you're someone who's trying to go into media, typically the system doesn't reward you well for telling truth, right? People like Matt Taibbi, who are right about Russiagate, or Glenn Greenwald, who've been right about some of the excesses of, say, the Democratic Party, even though they were right, or the folks who were right about Biden, they've mostly been kicked out of media, where people who make cataclysmic mistakes, like Judith Miller getting us into the war in Iraq, she lost her job at the Times, but then got one at Fox News, or Chris Cuomo, who directly lied to audiences to protect his brother. Yeah, sure, he lost his job at CNN, then he got a job at News Nation. So the system does have a serious problem of rewarding people who behave poorly, but I try to follow those folks, the Matt Taibbi's, Glenn Greenwald's, Abby Martins, who consistently do reporting that is proven true one way or another. Hey Detoxers, thanks for tuning in to the Disinfo Detox. If you're enjoying the content, head over to nolanhigdon.substack.com for full access to the podcast as well as other original essays. Want to support the Detox? Consider becoming a paid subscriber. You'll get early and exclusive access to interviews, podcasts, essays, and more. If a subscription's not in the cards for you right now, no worries. Just like, share, subscribe, comment, and follow. It helps grow the audience and spread the word. Until next time, stay sharp, stay skeptical, and keep detoxing the disinfo.